The phone call came at 3:47 a.m., and I knew, before I even answered, that my entire world was about to shatter and rebuild itself in ways I couldn't imagine. My grandmother's voice was barely a whisper. "Emma, sweetheart, I need you to come home. Right now. There's something I should have told you 30 years ago, and I'm afraid I'm running out of time." I was already reaching for my keys before she finished speaking. You see, my grandmother had raised me since I was 7 after my parents died in that car accident. She was my everything, my anchor, my safe harbor, my entire family. And she never, ever called me in the middle of the night unless something was terribly wrong. But as I drove through the empty streets toward her house, I had no idea that this wasn't about her dying. This was about me living. The old Victorian house looked exactly the same as it had for the past 23 years. White picket fence, climbing roses, that crooked mailbox I dented with my bike when I was 12. But something felt different. The air itself seemed to hum with anticipation, like the moment before lightning strikes. Grandma Rose was waiting for me on the porch, clutching a shoebox against her chest like it contained the secrets of the universe. Maybe it did. "Sit down, honey," she said, her voice steady now, though I could see her hands trembling. "What I'm about to tell you, it's going to sound impossible. But every word is true." I sat beside her on the old porch swing, the same one where she'd read me bedtime stories, where she'd bandaged my scraped knees, where she'd held me while I cried about my first heartbreak. The swing creaked under our weight, a sound that had always meant safety to me. "Your parents," she began, and my heart immediately clenched. We rarely talked about them. The pain was still too fresh, even after all these years. They weren't just driving to the grocery store that night, Emma. They were driving to the airport. The world tilted. What? They were coming to get you. All of you. She opened the shoebox, and I saw stacks of letters, photographs, and documents I'd never seen before. "Emma, sweetheart, you have a twin brother." The words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't process what she just said. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I would remember. I would know. You were separated when you were 3 years old." Her voice was barely audible now. "Your parents, they were going through a terrible divorce. Your father took Marcus to California. Your mother kept you here in Ohio. They were fighting for custody and—" She paused, wiping away tears I'd never seen her shed before. "The night they died, they had finally agreed to reunite you. They were flying to California to bring Marcus home." I stared at the photographs in the box. Pictures of 2 identical children, a boy and a girl with the same dark curls, the same bright green eyes, the same mischievous smile. One of them was clearly me. The other, where is he? I managed to ask. "That's the thing, honey. After your parents died, the courts, they couldn't find him. Your father had moved several times, changed his name, tried to disappear with Marcus. By the time the lawyers tracked them down, your father had died too, cancer, just 6 months after the accident. And Marcus." She handed me a letter with my name, written in shaky handwriting. "Marcus was already gone. Gone. He'd run away from foster care. He was only 7, Emma. Just 7 years old, and he was alone in the world, looking for a family that no longer existed." I opened the letter with trembling fingers. It was dated just 3 weeks ago. "Dear Emma, I don't know if you'll ever read this, or if you even remember me. My name is Marcus Chen. I changed my last name when I was 18. But I was born Marcus Thompson, and I've been looking for my twin sister for 23 years. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago. She found records of our parents' accident, found your grandmother's address. If you're reading this, it means I've finally found you. I know this might be overwhelming. I know you might not believe me, but I have proof, birthmarks, memories, photographs. I remember the night we were separated. I remember crying for you. I remember you had a stuffed elephant named Peanut that you took everywhere. I've been successful in life. I'm a doctor now, a pediatric surgeon. But there's been a hole in my heart shaped like a sister I lost. I've never married, never had children of my own, because I felt like half of my family was missing. I'll be in Millbrook on June 15th. I'll wait at the old oak tree in Central Park every day at 3 p.m. for a week, hoping you'll come. If you don't, I'll understand. But if you do, maybe we can finally be whole again. Your brother, Marcus. I looked up at my grandmother, my vision blurred with tears. June 15th. That's today. She nodded. I know, sweetheart. I've been wrestling with whether to tell you. I was so afraid. Afraid you'd be angry with me for keeping the secret. Afraid you'd be hurt. Afraid this Marcus person might not really be your brother. Afraid of opening old wounds. But why now? Why tell me now? She took my hands in hers, and I felt how frail she'd become. Because I had that heart attack last month, and it reminded me that we don't have forever. And because, she smiled through her tears, because I've been watching you, Emma. You're 30 years old, and you're so successful, so accomplished. But you're also so alone. You've never let anyone truly close to you. You've never been able to fully open your heart. She was right. I had walls around my heart that I'd never been able to tear down. I'd always blamed it on losing my parents, but now, I think deep down, you've always known, she continued. That's why you felt so incomplete. That's why you've been searching for something you couldn't name. I looked at the clock on my phone. 2:47 p.m. I have to go, I said, standing up so quickly I nearly fell over. I have to go right now. Emma, wait. She grabbed my arm. What if it's not him? What if it's someone trying to take advantage of you? Then I'll know, I said. But Grandma, what if it is him? What if my brother, my twin brother, has been sitting in that park every day for 2 weeks, waiting for me? What if he thinks I don't want to see him? She smiled then, the same smile that had comforted me through every nightmare, every disappointment, every fear. Then you better hurry. I ran to my car, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. As I drove toward Central Park, memories started flooding back, fragments I'd always dismissed as imagination or dreams. Playing with someone who looked just like me. Sharing a crib. Crying for someone who wasn't there. And Peanut. My God, Peanut. I'd forgotten about Peanut, but now I could see him clearly, my gray stuffed elephant with the torn ear and the missing eye. How could the stranger know about Peanut unless? I parked at the edge of Central Park and walked toward the old oak tree. It was 3:03 p.m. I was late. What if he'd given up? What if he decided I wasn't coming? But as I rounded the corner, I saw him. He was sitting on a bench beneath the massive oak tree, and even from a distance, even after 23 years, I knew. The way he sat, the way he held his shoulders, the way he nervously ran his hands through his hair, it was like looking at a male version of myself. He looked up as I approached, and our eyes met. The same green eyes I saw in the mirror every morning. The same eyes that had looked back at me from that faded photograph. Emma, he said, standing up slowly, as if he were afraid I might disappear. Marcus, I replied, and my voice broke on his name. We stood there for a moment, just staring at each other, and I could see he was crying. Not the polite tears of a stranger, but the deep, soul-shaking sobs of someone who had been broken and was finally being made whole. I thought you weren't coming, he said. I've been here every day for 2 weeks, and I thought maybe you didn't want to know me. I just found out about you 3 hours ago, I said, and then I was crying too. I've been looking for something my whole life, and I never knew it was you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph. It was the two of us as toddlers, sitting in a sandbox, our arms around each other, both of us grinning at the camera. I've carried this with me everywhere, he said. It's the only picture I have of us together. I reached into my purse and pulled out something I'd grabbed from my grandmother's shoebox at the last minute. A small, gray stuffed elephant with a torn ear and a missing eye. Peanut, I whispered. His face crumpled. You kept him. I kept him for you, I said, though I hadn't realized it until that moment. I kept him for you. We moved toward each other slowly, carefully, like we were afraid this might all turn out to be a dream. And then we were hugging, and it was like coming home to a place I'd never been but had always belonged. I'm a doctor, he said into my shoulder. I became a pediatric surgeon because I wanted to save children the way no one saved us. I'm a social worker, I said, holding him tighter. I help families stay together because I knew what it felt like to be torn apart. We talked for hours. We compared scars and birthmarks, shared memories that we both thought were dreams, filled in the missing pieces of each other's lives. He told me about the foster homes, the years of searching, the private investigator who'd finally found our grandmother's address. I told him about Grandma Rose, about the love and stability she'd provided, about the hole in my heart I'd never been able to fill. "I have so many questions," I said as the sun began to set. "How did you find me? How did you know I was still alive? How did you know I'd kept the same last name?" "I never stopped believing," he said simply. "Even when the investigators said you might be dead. Even when the trail went cold. Even when everyone told me to give up. I never stopped believing that somewhere out there, my sister was waiting for me." As we walked back toward our cars, I realized that everything in my life had led to this moment. Every lonely night, every failed relationship, every time I'd felt like something was missing, it had all been preparing me for this reunion. "Emma," Marcus said as we reached my car, "I know this is overwhelming. I know you need time to process this. But I have to ask, can I meet her? Can I meet Grandma Rose?" I smiled through my tears. "She's been waiting 30 years to meet you." The drive to my grandmother's house was surreal. My twin brother, my actual twin brother, was following me in his rental car, and I kept looking in the rearview mirror to make sure he was really there. Grandma Rose was waiting on the porch again, but this time she wasn't alone. She called my Aunt Sarah, my Uncle Jim, and my cousins. Word had spread through our small family like wildfire, and they were all there, waiting to meet the nephew and cousin they'd never known existed. When Marcus got out of his car, my grandmother gasped. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You look just like your father." "And you," Marcus said, walking up the porch steps slowly. "You must be the angel who saved my sister." My grandmother, who had always been the strongest person I knew, broke down completely. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry I couldn't save you too." "You did save me," Marcus said, wrapping his arms around her. "You saved the part of me that mattered most. You kept my sister safe until I could find her." That night, we sat around my grandmother's kitchen table, the same table where I'd done my homework, eaten countless meals, and learned what family meant. But now, for the first time in my life, our family was complete. Marcus showed us pictures of his life in California, his medical practice, his apartment, his friends. He built a good life for himself, but I could see the loneliness in the edges of every photograph. Just like I could see the loneliness in every picture of my own life. "I have a confession," I said as we were looking through photo albums. "I've never been able to commit to anyone. I've had relationships, but I always held back, always kept a part of myself protected. I thought it was because I was afraid of losing people, but now I think I was saving part of myself for you." "I've done the same thing," Marcus said quietly. "I tell people I'm married to my work, but the truth is, I've never felt complete enough to share my life with someone. How could I give someone all of me when half of me was missing?" My grandmother reached across the table and took both our hands. "You know what this means, don't you?" she said with a smile. "It means you both get to start over. You get to discover who you really are when you're whole."
If you are enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means a lot to us. We are just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
Over the next few days, Marcus extended his stay. We were inseparable, making up for lost time, sharing stories, creating new memories. He met my friends, and I could see the shock on their faces when they realized how much we looked alike, how we had the same laugh, the same gestures, the same way of tilting our heads when we were thinking. "It's like watching Emma with a different gender filter," my best friend Kate said. "You two are eerily similar." But we were also beautifully different. Where I was cautious, he was bold. Where he was analytical, I was intuitive. We complemented each other in ways that made us both stronger. On his last day, we sat in Central Park again, under the same oak tree where we'd been reunited. "I don't want to go back to California," he said. "I don't want to be separated from you again." "Then don't," I said. "Stay. Or let me come with you. I don't care where we are, as long as we're together." He smiled. "I've been thinking about that. There's a hospital here in Millbrook that's been trying to recruit me for months. And you could transfer your social work license to California if you wanted to come west." "We have options," I said. "For the first time in our lives, we have options." As the sun set on what had been the most important week of my life, I realized that this wasn't just about finding my brother. This was about finding myself, the missing piece that had made me feel incomplete, that had made me afraid to fully open my heart, that had made me feel like I was living half a life. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me something that made my breath catch. It was a website he'd created years ago, a missing persons page, looking for his twin sister. At the bottom, there was a quote that broke my heart. "I believe that somewhere in this world, there's another half of my soul walking around, looking for me the same way I'm looking for her. And when we find each other, we'll both finally be able to love completely because we'll finally be whole." "I wrote that 5 years ago," he said. "I never stopped believing we'd find each other." "And we did," I said, leaning my head on his shoulder. "We found each other. 6 months later, I was standing in a different park, in a different city, but under another old oak tree. Marcus had taken the job at Millbrook General Hospital, and I'd opened my own family counseling practice. We bought houses 3 blocks apart, close enough to see each other every day, but far enough to maintain our independence. But today wasn't about us. Today was about the family we were helping to reunite. "Are you ready?" I asked the 8-year-old boy standing beside me. His name was Tyler, and he'd been separated from his older sister when their parents divorced. "Sound familiar? What if she doesn't remember me?" Tyler asked, clutching the teddy bear that had been his comfort through 3 years of foster care. "She remembers you," I said with certainty. Sisters never forget their brothers, just like brothers never forget their sisters. Marcus came walking across the park, holding the hand of an 11-year-old girl with Tyler's same dark hair and bright smile. This was what we did now, together. We found lost families and brought them home. "Tyler," the girl called out, and her voice was full of wonder and hope. "Melissa!" Tyler broke away from me and ran toward his sister, and they collided in the middle of the park in a hug that reminded me of that first moment when Marcus and I had found each other. "We did good," Marcus said, coming to stand beside me. "We did," I agreed. "We did really good." As we walked home together, I thought about how many times I'd wished for a different story. A story where our parents hadn't died, where we hadn't been separated, where we'd grown up together. But now I realized that our story was perfect exactly as it was. Because the love between siblings who find each other is different from the love between siblings who never lost each other. It's deeper, more grateful, more precious. It's love that knows what it's like to live without, and chooses to never take for granted again. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I found a note slipped under my front door. It was from Marcus, even though he'd just left an hour ago. "Emma, I know we see each other every day now, but I wanted to write this down so you'd always have it. Thank you for waiting for me. Thank you for keeping Peanut safe. Thank you for becoming the most incredible woman, so that when I finally found you, I found someone worth finding. I love you, sister. Not just because we're twins, not just because we share DNA, but because you're the most beautiful soul I've ever known. Grandma Rose did an amazing job raising you. Sweet dreams. I'll see you tomorrow. Your brother, Marcus. P.S. I'm thinking about asking Kate out. I know it's weird to ask your sister for dating advice, but is she as wonderful as she seems?" I laughed out loud. Kate had been asking about Marcus since the day they met, and I'd been waiting for him to work up the courage to ask her out. Maybe that's the most beautiful part of his whole story. Finding Marcus didn't just give me back my brother, it gave me back my faith in love, in family, in the idea that sometimes the universe has a plan that's bigger and more beautiful than anything we could imagine for ourselves. A year later, I stood in the same church where my parents had been married, watching my twin brother marry my best friend. Grandma Rose was in the front row, crying happy tears and whispering to anyone who would listen, "I told you that boy was going to make us a family again." And as I watched them exchange vows, I thought about how love multiplies. Finding Marcus hadn't taken anything away from my other relationships. It had made them all stronger, deeper, more real. Because when you know what it feels like to be whole, you can love from a place of abundance instead of scarcity. After the wedding, as the reception was winding down, I found myself back at Central Park, sitting under our oak tree. Marcus found me there, still in his tuxedo, his new wife beside him. "What are you doing here?" he asked, sitting down beside me. "Just thinking," I said, "about how different our lives would have been if we'd never found each other." "But we did find each other," Kate said. "That's what matters. Do you think Mom and Dad would be proud of us?" Marcus asked quietly. I thought about the parents I barely remembered, the ones who had died trying to bring us back together. I think they'd be amazed, I said. I think they'd be so proud of the people we became, and so happy that we finally found our way back to each other. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 small boxes. I have something for you, he said. For both of you. Inside the boxes were matching necklaces, 2 halves of a heart that fit together perfectly. On one side, it said sisters by choice, and on the other, family by love. Kate's not just my wife now, Marcus said. She's your sister too, and Grandma Rose's granddaughter. And that makes us all complete. As we sat there under the stars, I realized that this wasn't just the end of our story, it was the beginning. The beginning of a family that had been torn apart and put back together, stronger than ever. The beginning of love stories that could only happen because we'd learned what it meant to lose each other. The beginning of the rest of our lives, lived not as 2 halves looking for wholeness, but as complete people choosing to share that completeness with each other. And sometimes, on quiet nights like this one, I swear I can feel them, Mom and Dad, watching over us, finally at peace because their children found their way home. The love that survives separation isn't just love, it's faith, hope, and the unshakable belief that some bonds are stronger than time, distance, or even death itself.